Hey everyone, I'm Liz Fairy and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made these crocheted holiday cookies. I made a gingerbread man, a Christmas tree, and a snowflake cookie. In this part, I'll be making the snowflake cookie. Some things you'll need for this tutorial are a couple of different sizes of crochet hook. I used a size E, a 3.5mm, and a size B, a 2.25mm, a pair of scissors, some stitch markers or bobby pins, a yarn needle, some sewing pins, and some yarn. I used warm brown from Red Heart Super Saver for the cookie, and I used Aunt Lydia's white crochet cotton in size 10 for the snowflake. You can also find a pattern for these projects in my Ravelry store at the link in the description below. Using my brown yarn, I'm going to start by making a double magic circle with 12 stitches of double crochet. First, I'll wrap my yarn around my fingers twice, then pull up a loop in the magic circle, and chain 2 to count as the first double crochet. Mark that stitch with my bobby pin as the first stitch of the row, and then double crochet 11 more times onto my magic circle. Now I'm going to close my magic circle. First I'll pull on the tail a little bit so that I have a bigger loop and a smaller loop. Then I'm going to pull on the smaller loop from the side closest to the tail until the bigger loop closes completely. And then I'll pull on the tail until the other loop closes. Now in the next row, I'm going to increase every stitch of the row with 2 double crochets. So I'm going to double crochet into the chain 2 that counted as the first stitch, mark that stitch as the new first stitch of this row, and then double crochet again into the same stitch. And now I'll just carry on double crocheting 2 times into each stitch of the row. Now I've finished with my row of increasing every stitch of the row. Now in my next row, I'm going to turn this circle into a hexagon. First, I'm going to double crochet into each of the first 3 stitches. So I'll double crochet into the first stitch, mark that stitch as the first stitch of the row with my bobby pin, and then double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Now into the 4th stitch of the row, I'm going to double crochet 4 times, and that's going to create a corner. So I'll double crochet into the next stitch, then into the same stitch, double crochet again, then double crochet again into the same stitch. Now I have 3 stitches in the same stitch, and now one more time I'm going to double crochet again into the same stitch. And now as you can see, that's created this little rounded corner. Now I'm going to repeat that all around the row until I get to the last increase of the row, which I'm going to do slightly differently. So I'm going to double crochet into the next 3 stitches, and now into the 4th stitch, I'm going to double crochet 4 times. And now I've created a second rounded corner. So I'm going to repeat that all around the row until I get to the last increase, which I'll do slightly differently. So I've gotten to the last stitch of the row, and this is where my last increase is going to go. Into that stitch, instead of double crocheting 4 times like I've done into each other increase of this row, instead I'm going to double crochet 2, then half double crochet 1, and then single crochet 1, all into the same stitch. And this is going to gradually bring the row back down to the level of the first stitch of the row. So I'm going to double crochet 2 times into that stitch, then half double crochet into the same stitch, and then single crochet into the same stitch. And now I've created my last corner, and I've tapered the width of the row down to the same level as the first stitch. So now to end the row, I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch. Then I'll cut off a long tail of my yarn, and this is going to be the front side of my cookie. So I'm going to make one more of these brown hexagons to be the back, and then I'm going to make a snowflake applique to sew down to the front. Now I've finished making another hexagon, so I'm going to put these aside for now, and now I'm going to make the snowflake applique that goes on the front side. I'm going to do this using my crochet thread and my 2.25mm hook. I'm going to begin by creating a slip knot, then I'll chain 6 for the foundation chain. And now I'm going to slip stitch into the first chain to join the foundation into a ring. Now I'm going to chain 1, and that's going to count as the first stitch of the row, so I'm going to mark that stitch with my bobby pin. Next I'll chain 4 more, and then I'll single crochet into the ring. Now I'm going to repeat that until I have 6 chain 4s, and then I'll slip stitch to the first stitch of the row to end the row. So chain 4, single crochet in the ring, chain 4, single crochet in the ring, and now I'm going to repeat that 3 more times, ending on a chain 4. Now I've done my last chain 4, so I'm going to end the row by slip stitching into the first chain that counted as the first stitch of the row. Now I'm going to remove my stitch marker. So here's what we have so far. Now I'm going to make the snowflake shape in the next row. So first I'm going to chain 1, and that's going to be the first stitch of the row. So I'm going to mark that with my bobby pin. And now I'm going to chain 2 more, and then I'll single crochet into the first chain 4 space. Now I'm going to chain 2 for the foundation of my first little spike shape. Then I'll chain 3 to create a picot. So chain 3, and then slip stitch into the third chain from the hook. Now I'm going to create 2 more picots into the same loop. So to do that, I'm going to chain 2, and then I'll slip stitch into the same stitch where I just made the first picot. Now I'm going to do that one more time, chain 2, and then slip stitch into the same stitch as the first and second picot. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the 2 chains of my foundation. So here's what that looks like. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the side of the single crochet that I made before I started my foundation chain. And there's what that looks like. Now I'm going to chain 2, then single crochet into the single crochet in between the 2 chain 4s in the previous row. So now I'm going to make another spike shape, this time a little bit longer. So I'm going to chain 4 as the foundation chain, or as the foundation chain, then chain 3 more to create a picot. Now I'll slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the hook, and then I'll slip stitch into the next chain of the foundation. Now I'm going to work all of my picots into that chain. So I'm going to chain 3 again, slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the hook, and then I'll slip stitch again into the same chain of the foundation as the last picot. Now I'm going to do that one more time, chain 3, slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the hook, and then slip stitch into the same chain as the other 2 picots. And then I'll slip stitch into the next 3 chains of the foundation. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the side of the single crochet that I made before my chain. And here is what I have so far. Now I'm going to repeat that all the way around the row. So first I'm going to chain 2, then single crochet into the next chain 4 space. Now I'm going to create one of my shorter spikes. To do that, I'm going to chain 2 for the foundation chain, and then chain 3 to create my picot. Slip stitch into the third chain from the hook, and then I'm going to create 2 more picots into the same chain. So chain 2, slip stitch into the same chain, then chain 2 more and slip stitch into the same chain. Now slip stitch into the next 2 chains of the foundation, and then slip stitch into the side of the single crochet. Now chain 2 and single crochet into the single crochet in between the chain 4 spaces. Next, I'm going to create another long spike. So chain 4 for the foundation chain, chain 3 to create another picot, slip stitch into the third chain from the hook, and then slip stitch into the next chain of the foundation. And now I'm going to create another picot, so chain 3, and then slip stitch into the third chain from the hook. Now I'll slip stitch again into the same chain of the foundation as the last picot. Now I'll repeat that again, chain 3 and slip stitch into the third chain from the hook to create another picot, and then slip stitch into the same chain of the foundation as the other 2 picots. And next I'll slip stitch into the remaining 3 foundation chains. And then slip stitch into the side of the single crochet that I made before my chain. Now I'm going to continue to repeat that until I have 6 of each size of spike. Now I've gotten to the last of my long spikes, and to make this one, I'm going to single crochet into the chain 1 that counted as the first stitch in the previous row. Then I'm just going to repeat the process of making my long spike, and now to end the row, instead of slip stitching into the side of that single crochet, I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the row. Then I'm going to cut off a long tail of my yarn, and now my snowflake applique is done. Now I'm going to sew in my other end, now I'm going to position all of the long spikes matched up with the corners of my hexagon. I'm just going to attach them all in place using my sewing pins. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my shorter spikes in between, positioning them with more sewing pins. And I'm just going to make sure that all of the prongs of all of my spikes are in a position that I like, again using more sewing pins. Once I have the shape that I want, I'm just going to use the long tail to sew the applique down to the front hexagon piece. Alright, I finished sewing my snowflake applique onto the front hexagon. Now I'm going to sew the front and the back together. So I'm going to line up the corners of my hexagons, push those smaller tails to the inside. I'm also going to add a few extra tails that I have on hand so that I can stuff the middle a little bit. Now I'm going to line up the corners, and then I'm going to pin all the corners in place. And now I'm going to sew around the edge using a blanket stitch. And now the snowflake cookie is done. And all my holiday cookies are finished. I think these came out super cute. Let me know which one was your favorite in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, press the like button and share it on social media. If you want to support the channel, you can donate to my Patreon at patreon.com/fairyrings. You can find a link to my Patreon in the video description. Or you can leave a super thanks on the video right here on YouTube. You can also follow me or tag me to show me what you're working on Instagram at LizFairy. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, subscribe to my channel and click the bell to receive notifications every time I post a new video. I think these cookies would work really well as tree ornaments, along with my peppermint holiday candies that I made last week. I also recently got a bunch of pinbacks for another project, and I have toyed with the idea of using one of these to make a holiday brooch. Any thoughts on how else I could use these holiday cookies? Let me know your suggestions down in the comments section, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!